Okay, so now we have talked about something related to work group model. Remember everybody? We had talked about NTFS permissions. Remember? When talking about NTFS permissions, what is NTFS permissions all about? Tell me. What is used for?
Authorization. To provide rights of the holders and files.
Security. We're talking about security. So NTFS is talking about security. Securing what? A computer? Files and folders. NTFS stands for New Technology File System, and it talks about files and folders. Securing files and folders. Here, I told you something about the work group model. I told you in the Microsoft world, any operating system runs in a work group model, be it a server operating system or a workstation operating system. Right now, we are heading towards the domain, right? But in a work group model, username and passwords are stored in a database called, right? And SAM is stored in our following location. Windows system data. We don't need to know about that. We talked about NTFS security permissions, and we also talked about sharing permissions, yes or no? We had a scenario where a company purchased one more computer. We had these usernames and computer and passwords stored on this PC, but we had to create this account again on the second PC, yes or no? Why? SAM database does not have any concept of replication. Remember? The company has grown up. There are about 80,000 computers. I've just taken an example of 8 computers here. There are 1,000 computers in the organization. We have created a folder called data on XP machine. We created 2 users, Kutti and Chandru. Remember? We gave them special NTFS permission, but in order that these users were able to access this resource from any other computer, we had to create the account on every other computer in the network, yes or no? This is the headache in a workgroup model. There are lots of limitations in the workgroup model. Today, we are going to start off the domain. But in order to start off the domain, we need to understand what was the problem in the workgroup model. We need to understand what is the problem in the workgroup model. Why do you need domain? There will be some problems in the workgroup model, some limitations in the workgroup model. Because of this, we have to go ahead with the next level available in any operating system. The problem number 1 is creating username and password on every PC in the network. Now, there are 80,000 computers in this organization. A minimum of 80,000 users will be there in one chip company. Administrator would have to create 80,000 users and computer and passwords on every PC. This is going to be a problem or an overhead for the administrator. Any other administrative tasks? Here, if you have any questions, you can ask. Wait for about 15 minutes time, okay? Here, if a user has changed his password on this PC, will it automatically update on every other PC also? No. So administrator will have to be informed that this user has changed his password somewhere in the organization, and the administrator will have to update on all of the computers overnight. This would be another administrative overhead. Because if the user has changed his password here, tomorrow if the user is logging from this PC, his old password will have worked, not the new one. Another problem in a workgroup model. Again, related to administration of user computer name and username and computer name. Here, management has said that certain users should not be logging in from given computers. There are these computers which users should not be able to log in from for a week's time. Maybe from among the 80,000 computers, around 8,000 computers, users should not be, certain users should not be able to log in. The administrator would have to go to each and every 8,000 computers and disable those user accounts. Yes, are you understanding guys? So it is going to be a big administration overhead there also. Another example. Here, company has said a person who has not reported to the organization for 3 consecutive days without a proper leave sanction, the account should be disabled. Are you understanding the question? So here, Kutsi has not reported to the organization for 3 consecutive days. His account has to be disabled. The administrator will have to go to every 80,000 computers and disable his account. It is going to be a big administrative overhead for the administrator. Let's take another example. Group policy. Group policy is that tool in an operating system through which you can make changes on an operating system to that registry level, which cannot be done otherwise. For example, you want to disable pen drive. You want to disable USB pen drive but enable keyboard and mouse. You want to disable control panel from an operating system. You want to disable the right click properties, device manage access. You want to disable a user from changing the IP address. So all these activities you need to use the group policy tool. Let me show you a demo. We are all aware about XP operating system. Now there is some problem in this. Okay. So here I am taking an example of an XP operating system. So let's take we are all aware about an operating system like XP. Okay, I am not taking a very new operating system because this thing applies even to Windows 10. Here, this is XP 100, and I told you that the IP address of this PC XP 100 will always be 100, and this is XP 200. The IP address will always remain 1/200 throughout the source. Of course, there is communication between these two once the firewall is turned off. So I am turning the firewall off on XP 100. After which there is communication between XP 200 and 100 and vice versa. On XP 200, the company has told that control panel has to be disabled for every user. Run should be disabled. Access to the display properties should be disabled, and access to device manager has to be disabled. This can only be done using group policy. This is how you access the stored GP array. Okay? Here, I will talk to you more about all these options. But just to give an idea about what group policy does. I am using, now the steps can be viewed to the recording. I am going to start menu and taskbar. Here you have options like remove run menu from start. So this is one way a user could access the network property. Right? So remove run menu from start. Double click. Remove run menu from start. Enable or disable. Yes, I want to remove run menu. Yes, enable. Yes, enable removal of run menu. After some time, run will disappear. Now it will not be accessible. If you log off and log in, or wait for some time, run will disappear. I want to also disable access to control panel. Option here. Prohibit access to control panel. Yes or no? Enable. Enable prohibition of access to control panel. Now, you notice run has disappeared and control panel has. Now, sometimes control panel also disappear. Run has disappeared right now. Control panel will also disappear. Now, there are ways by which you can increase the speed of group policy editors. Now, I try to access control panel. It is not accessible. Very good. I am trying to go to properties of this PC. It is not allowing me. I am trying to go anywhere. It will not allow. Windows R will also not work. There are 80,000 computers in the organization. The group policy has been set on one PC, not on the others. On all other computers run, and access to control panel is possible. Why? Since we are running in a work group model. Almost 99% of the activities on a domain can be done in a work group model. So what is the use of a domain? Now, coming back to the same example, how do you solve these issues? Okay, issues like user administration, management of the operating system. Software developer said, first of all, bring about a server OS. Install a server OS. Get rid of the SAM file on the server OS and reinstate a file called ntds.dit. What is this? This is also a file just like the SAM database, but it has much more to it. It has much more to it. SAM stands for Security Accounts Manager. NTDS.dit stands for New Technology Directory Services Directory Information Tree. Where is it? New Technology Directory Services Directory Information Tree, which people refer to as Active Directory Database. What I am telling you is, software developers told us, get rid of the SAM file. Somehow bring about changes to the operating system and get this file called ntds.dit, which refers to as New Technology Directory Services Directory Information Tree, which is also referred to as Active Directory Database. We call it a SAM database. This is also referred to as Active Directory Database. Now, what does this database store? It stores usernames, passwords, computers' names, and their passwords. So what does the SAM file do? It does the same thing. So what's the difference? What's the difference? Software developer said, bring about this file called ntds.dit and then remove all the usernames and passwords from every computer in your organization. Remove everything. And all the 80,000 users and the passwords created inside this ntds.dit. Then, also every computer in the organization, the computer name and the password should also be added inside the ntds.dit. Okay? After which, whenever any of these users tries to log in from any of these given computer in your organization, for example, on the first PC, when it tries to log in, This PC will forward this authenticating query out straight to the network, locating for that server which has a file ntds.bit, and in fact tell the ntds.bit to check whether the username and password that the user has typed on this PC is correct or not. If the password and username is correct, this guy will say yes, you can facilitate authentication. Meaning you can go ahead with and allow him to log in. Are you understanding? This user, no matter which PC he logs in, that PC would forward the query to that centralized server. Now how that PC will locate the server is what I will cover later. That PC will be trained to locate that centralized server and ask that centralized server to check in its ntds.bit whether the username and the password that the user has typed on this computer is correct or wrong. And if it is correct, can I log in? Yes. Go ahead. This user, like before, changed his password on this PC. This PC sends the update onto the ntds.bit immediately, so that when the user tries to log in from another computer in the organization, that computer will also send the query to the same file that the update was taking place, yes or no? Kutti has not reported to work for 3 consecutive days. Administrator would disable his account here, so that when Kutti tries to log in from any given computer in the network, when he tries to send the query here, this PC would say, sorry, your account is locked, please contact your HR. Are you understanding? Kutti should not log in from certain given computers in your organization for the next 1 week. What the administrator would do is, add these computer names into Kutti's account and disable this computer account in Kutti's account only. Are you understanding? Administrator would open ntds.bit, in other words, open Active Directory database, and add these computer names and disable access to these computer names here itself. So that when Kutti tries to log in from here, even though the query is forwarded to the ntds.bit says, since your query is coming from this PC, you cannot log in. As the administrator has prevented you to log in from certain computers. I will demonstrate on this today. But first understand the concept. Group policy can be set here only. gpmc.msc. I use gpedit.msc. Remember? That is on a work group level. gpedit, if you know, it only affects that specific PC. But you want every computer in the network to understand this group policy. So on a domain, on the server where you have this ntds.bit, you will use Group Policy Management Console. GPMC stands for Group Policy Management Console.Microsoft Console. And from within here, you will say Disable Control Panel to Kutti and Chandru. Disable Control Panel and Run menu from task for Kutti and Chandru, not for boss. What happens? Watch carefully. Boss logs in from this PC. Whatever PC on a network. Boss has access to control panel. Boss has access to everything. So from the same PC, not boss. When Kutti and Chandru or any other 80,000 users log in, control panel, run menu has disappeared. That means in this system, you can have facilities using group policies on a per user level. Are you understanding? So in short, we have facilitated centralized authentication, centralized administration. Are you understanding? This system which facilitates centralized authentication and centralized or administration, this system is referred to as a domain system. Domain facilitates centralized access point. Are you understanding? So, in short, in one word, AAA services is what domain facilitates. AAA stands for authentication, authorization, and accounting. We'll talk more about authorization and accounting in some time, but right now we understood the meaning of authentication. When Kuti or any other tries to log in, authentication is centralized. Centralized AAA services is what the domain facilitates. Domain is the environment, and the server who has the ntds.dit file or who has the Active Directory database is called as the controller of the domain, also referred to as domain controller. Are you understanding? The domain controller is the server who has the file ntds.dit, or the server where the Active Directory database is stored. Domain is the work area or the environment where all computers are grouped together and authenticated by this centralized server. Let me jot down the definition of a domain so you can use the recording to make a note. Here I have definitions of a workgroup model and a domain model, okay? In a workgroup, we have a collection of two or more computers joined together within a physical boundary to share resources. Resources? Folders, internet, printers, resources. So in a workgroup, we share resources, but do not have a centralized authenticating database. While in a domain, the same thing, same definition of a workgroup, but we have a logical boundary which covers your LAN, MAN, and WAN. That is, in a workgroup, all computers should be within a building, within a campus, within a room. While in a domain, client machines could be anywhere in the world. Using a common database called Active Directory, you can also use the word ntds.dit for the purpose of authentication. What is Active Directory? Active Directory is a database that stores information of all objects and attributes. Objects, that means computers, users, we'll talk about OUs, groups. Okay? Attributes. For example, attribute of a user would be first name, last name. Attribute of a group would be group membership. Attribute of an OU would be department name, property, etc. So you can get your definition from here. So now you know the advantage of a domain, right? In view to a workgroup model. In a domain, you have a centralized server which facilitates centralized authentication. So, domain facilitates centralized authentication. Authentication. It's only for the purpose of authentication you have a domain. Everything else is a byproduct. Admin is centralized administration. It's a byproduct. The main purpose is centralized authentication. Once a person is centrally authenticated, from here only administration can also be centralized. Authorization. On this folder, we are running in a domain model right now. This folder is stored in this XP machine. I go to the properties and configure NTFS permissions. We have covered NTFS, but on a domain level, NTFS will be different. We have worked on a workgroup model. We talked about NTFS permissions. Here, on a domain level, we will right-click, go to properties on data folder, and add Kutti and Chandru, and give the same permissions that we said earlier, that Kutti should not be able to modify Chandru's file. Remember? But here, we will add the domain Kutti and the domain Chandru, not the local user. We will not have local users anymore. Kutti logs in from this PC. Authentication is centralized, yes or no? Kutti tries to access his file. As soon as he accesses the data folder, the database post folder will ask me, who are you? I am Kutti. This PC will send the query to domain and ask domain, who is Kutti? Can he access this data folder? Are you understanding? Authorization is what the domain facility. This PC is asking the domain controller whether Kutti, who has logged in on this PC, is authorized to access the data folder. Authorization is what domain facilitates. The main purpose of domain is centralized authentication. Everything else is a byproduct. Kutti, logging from this PC, tries to access Chandru's file. This PC will forward the query before giving access to the data folder. This PC will forward the query to domain controller. Ask domain controller, can Kutti access Chandru's file? It is no. Why? Whatever permissions you configure here is sent to this server. Are you understanding? You say, won't it take a lot of bandwidth? Yes. All this happens in nanoseconds. That's the reason that you have bandwidth raising from 100 Mbps to 1 Gbps. Now bandwidth is increasing. Why do you going for high bandwidth? For faster authentication, faster network traffic. Kutti tried to delete Chandru's file here. He will not be able to delete it. We know it. We have seen that in NTFS permission. But Kutti is trying to delete. A log is maintained. Active directory says Kutti has tried to delete, and active directory informing you, the administrator, that Kutti has attempted to delete. Accounting. I understand. These are the AAA services maintained by Active Directory, but then I would add one more A. Centralized administration. Of course, this is understood. Administration centralized. Administration as in group policy administration, group membership administration, creation of username, password, resetting an account essentially. Getting my point? Now since we have understood what a domain is, the advantage of a domain is, let's go and understand how do you bring about a domain environment. The practical. But step by step. Step number 1. This should be a server operating system. Mandatory. You cannot use a workstation operating system. Step number 2. You need to define a domain name. A domain name. Step number 1. Server operating system. Step number 2. You need a static IP address. Of course, this is not a mandate after 2008. Up to 2003, if you would not provide a static IP address, you could not promote it to a domain controller. Today, even a dynamic IP address will do. But nobody will dare provide a dynamic IP address to a domain controller. You know? Yeah. Next. So we will go ahead with one by one. Throughout the course, remember, throughout the course, the first domain controller's IP address will be 101. It will not change. Okay? Next, we need to define a name for the domain. For example, you got a new party, a political party up. Recently, a new party, Aam Aadmi Party has come up. So you are planning about name. So there, we talk about party name in India, right? While in a domain, we talk about domain name. The domain name would be cisco.com throughout the course. You will not be changing domain name ever. For next 3 months, the end of the course, whether it will be MCSA, MCSE or MCP, the domain name would remain the same. Next. We need to add these client machines to the domain, yes or no? That has to be done manually. It will not happen automatically. At least once in your lifetime, you have to tell this computer, tell every computer in the network, please become a part of this domain. Domain name is? This PC will say, who is cisco.com? I do not understand name. Remember? Which is the service that is used to resolve name to IP address? DNS. When given you introduction over MCSE, I told you something about DNS. DNS is a service that is used to resolve. I also talked about something called domain name to IP address. Remember? This is a domain name. So the next requirement would be you need to install a DNS service. Remember I was doing a demo of DNS? You're using one topic called IIS. When configuring IIS, we try to use another server. Remember this topic? We had IIS on this PC and we had DNS on another PC. Remember? I deliberately used another PC for DNS because I wanted to show you how a client machine would go forward a query for name resolution to one server, and after acquiring a name, an IP address for a specific name, how the client machine would forward that query to a web server for further information. Yes or no? So we had a separate DNS server. That will never happen in the course. That was just a small demo. Henceforth, the DNS server would also be the same PC where the NTDS.dit would be stored. You will be using one server for DNS as well as Active Directory. Why? There is a reason behind it. Okay? We will talk about that reason as when we advance in the course. Okay? So, tell you one thing. Here in this example, I also showed you that we need to inform the client who the preferred DNS server is. Remember? Without this information, the client, that is X machine, would not be able to resolve his name, yes or no? So the preferred DNS server in this case was 1.3. Remember? What would be the preferred DNS server in this case? IP address, tell me. 1.1. Correct answer. So every client machine would be configured with 1.1. Only then, when you ask him to become a part of the cisco.com domain, he will be able to resolve the domain name cisco.com to 92 versus 1.1. Are you understanding? So the next step would be to configure preferred DNS for every client machine. The first step, compulsory, a server operating system. Mandatory, we will be providing an IP address. Next, a domain name, cisco.com. The DNS server's IP address will be 1.1. Throughout the course. Next step, preferred DNS. Next step, on the server operating system, you need to install a service called Active Directory Domain Services. Okay? Active Directory Domain Services is a service that is used to promote a server into a domain controller. Only after the service is installed, only after that you can promote the server into a domain controller or to a domain controller. By default, all servers are running in a workgroup model. In order to avail a domain system, you need to promote the server to a domain controller using some command or using some GUI click option. In order to avail that DC promo option, you need to install Active Directory Domain Service. In 2003, this service was not there. This service started after 2008 server. This service started after 2008. In 2008, when you execute a DC promo without installing the service, the operating system would install the service in the background for you. Are you understanding? Are you understanding? But in 2012 and 16, if you run DC promo, it will not go ahead, it will show an error message. It will tell you, please install ADDS service first. After that, it will show you the option for promoting it to a domain controller. Are you understanding, everybody? Next, as soon as you install this, you will get a tool called Active Directory Users and Computers. This is one of the tools that is used to open the file ntds.dit. Just one thing I forgot. ntds.dit by default is stored in this folder. By default. You can change it if you want. The size of ntds is 14 MB. In case they ask you some stupid questions they ask in an interview, it has no meaning. But some people may ask you, it's 14 MB by default, and on Google you'll find it written as 18 MB. So you can say, by default it's 14 MB, in Google is written 18 MB. Whatever you want. Both of its answers are available to you. As soon as you install ADDS service, you have a tool called Active Directory Users and Computers, with the help of which you can manage your ntds.dit. Fine. Next, you need to install a service called Active Directory Web Services. Now this service is not a separate installation, it gets installed in the background for you. What is the use of this tool? It gives you a new tool called Active Directory Administrator Center. What is that tool used for? It is again used to manage your Active Directory. So what is the difference between this tool and this tool? Are you understanding the question? Both are used to manage your username and password. Now what is the difference? This is again another interview question. How will you manage Active Directory? Using Active Directory, answer is using Active Directory Users and Computers tool. Then you also have another tool called Active Directory Administrator Center. Yeah, with that also you can manage. What is the difference? Whatever you do in GUI happens using command line in the background, we all know. You click a button, it happens, it runs, the operating system runs the command for you in the background, we all know. Whenever you execute or create a user in Active Directory using Active Directory User Computer, it uses MS-DOS. Whenever you use this tool, it uses PowerShell. That's it. So, what is the difference between MS-DOS and PowerShell? In the beginning of the course, I will only tell you, PowerShell is more secure, while MS-DOS can easily be hacked. PowerShell is very secure, it uses encryption. Getting the point, while MS-DOS uses clear text. So if there is a man in the middle attack, if you are using PowerShell, the attacker will not be able to decrypt. It will take a long time to decrypt it. While if an attacker, if you are using Active Directory Users and Computers to access Active Directory database in network, the hacker is an easy tool. I think I used to use that created U1, his password so and so, etc. etc. Of course, it is still not easy, but a hacker can easily use the tool. So, in short, Microsoft will deprecate this command very soon. This will go off. Everything will be done using PowerShell. Next step required, you need a drive formatted in NTFS. A C drive or D drive in NTFS. Why? NTDS or DIT. You also have a folder called sysvol, which is stored inside a drive formatted in NTFS. If you have facts, you will say, please, I require NTFS file. So file system. So now, these are the prerequisites of before you go ahead with the installation of a domain system. And lastly, you will promote using a command or a script or a GUI click. Now, this command again has been removed. So you have to use the click button to promote a domain server. Okay? Why they are removed? Another reason. I will explain the reason later on. But right now, let's see the practical. Okay? So we need to talk about these protocols, and you also need to talk about the port numbers. Again, another very important interview question answer. Now these are questions that ask you at an L3 level or L2 level. L1 will not ask you at this level. L1 is asking what is the domain. L2 will ask you questions about LDAP. What is LDAP? What is the difference between Kerberos, LDAP? What is the use of RPC services, etc. So right now, I am going ahead with promoting a server into a domain customer. I will be using a 2012 server. Okay. A brand new 2012 server. A brand new 2012 server. Now, let me just